Let's hear how they adapted Lord of the Rings. Like their take on The Hobbit, the Mind's Eye production of Lord of the Rings is a decently faithful adaptation of the text, only really condensing and abridging things for time, but unlike their Hobbit, this didn't come after an excellent radio adaptation of the same source material, at least as far as we know, since we haven't heard the 55 version, but from what we hear it doesn't sound like it was excellent, so this did not begin its life in another production shadow. Frodo is voiced by James Arrington, whose most prominent voice role is this guy.
Oh, no. Oh, yes. No, madam. Everything will be perfect.
And his take on Frodo...
You look the same as ever, Frodo.
So do you. Maybe a bit older and more careworn. Still, tell me news of yourself and of the wide world.
Maybe my brain has been poisoned by too many obsessions of too many moments, but... is it just me, or does he sound kinda like Guybrush Threepwood?
The ring, you say, is dangerous? In what way?
LeChuck's ring had a terrible curse on it, but I put everything right. You're safe and everything's gonna be fine.
This Frodo sounds more like Guybrush than the Frodo who was actually voiced by Dominic Armato.
My errand awaits.
What a pity that Bilbo didn't stab that vile creature when he had a chance.
Pity? It was pity that stayed his hand.
The audience didn't hear it, but trust us, it was pity.
So you have come, Gandalf.
Yes, I have come for your aid, Saruman the White.
James Arrington also plays Saruman, and the role is a little more... arch.
Have you indeed, Gandalf the Grey, for aid?
Yes.
It has seldom been heard of that Gandalf the Grey sought for aid, one so cunning and so wise.
I'm sure this is at least partially an attempt to distinguish the voice from Frodo's, but it's just so... sinister cartoon bad guy. I don't feel any magical persuasiveness in this Saruman's voice.
But what has one of the big people got to do with us?
A lot of the hobbits and the elves are voiced by women, which I'm fine with because there weren't that many roles for them in the story, but it seems to be an attempt to make them sound diminutive or fair, and I don't know how well it works.
And what is he doing in this part of the world?
Begging your pardon, I know where he comes from.
Where?
It's from Hobbiton, that this Black Rider comes from.
I guess these producers thought only some tone should rise with the fall in stature.
I can hear Fireside Tales and children's stories at home, Sam Ganji, if I want to.
Still, I do hear queer things these days, to be sure. Who invented the stories anyway? Take dragons now.
No thanks, I won't.
Sam is voiced by the legendary Lou Bliss, aka all these characters, and Sam's not really given much of an introduction. He's mentioned by the gaffer, but then he just shows up arguing with Sandyman, and we start following him until he hides outside Bag End dropping eaves.
Mr. Frodo, sir, don't let him hurt me. I heard a deal that I didn't understand.
I know his introduction's not that much more in-depth in the book, but like the way narration works in the book, we actually feel the weight that we're meeting an important character. And like, we know Sam because we know this story, but if this was your first exposure to the story, the introductions might feel a bit unfocused.
Master Elrond, believe not that in the land of Gondor the blood of Númenor is spent, nor all its pride and dignity forgotten.
The actor who played both Boromir and Theoden here would go on to be the voice of Admiral Akbar.
I greet you, and maybe you look for welcome, but truth to tell, your welcome is doubtful here, Master Gandalf.
Insert joke here about Boromir's greed or Grima's council being a trap. Unlike the 6 hours total of the 55 production, this version got 11 hours, giving it breathing room to be mostly coherent in its adaptation. Still rushed at points, but like it mostly makes sense. Mostly.
But I've heard something that's made me anxious and needs looking into. I think you should get off at once.
Okay, so unlike in the book, where Gandalf is urgent, but he's still okay with Frodo planning his leaving methodically, here he just says Frodo should be off at once, much like Jackson would later have him do.
But Bilbo's birthday came and went, and still Gandalf did not return.
So Frodo didn't exactly go off at once then. This is the problem when you just take some phrases from the book verbatim without thinking about how they're affected by the parts you did change. Unlike Ralph Bakshi the earlier year, this version includes Gildor.
Tonight, Frodo, you will lodge with us if you will.
Oh, thank you indeed, Gildor. A star shines on the hour of our meeting, as you say in High Elven speech. This is good fortune beyond my hope.
And it includes Farmer Maggot.
Baggins is coming, he hissed at me. I wish to find him. If he passes, will you tell me? I'll come back with gold. No, you won't, I said.
And yes, it's got Tom Bombadil, baby.
My friends are caught in the willow tree.
Master Mary's being squeezed in a crack.
Yes, oh help.
Old Man Willow. Not worse than that. I know the tune for him. Old Grey Willow Man. I'll freeze his marrow cold. I'll sing his roots off. I'll just put my mouth to the crack.
While basically every adaptational choice is made more in the name of abridgment than in the name of creative decisions, some of those abridgments actually do recontextualize moments of the story. Like Farmer Maggot. The way his episode is condensed leaves it kind of ambiguous as to whether or not Maggot actually remembers Frodo from his youth or not. Until the ending, which makes it much more of a punchline.
And Mr. Frodo, Mrs. Maggot put this up for Mr. Baggins. With her compliment.
For me? Oh, a basket of mushrooms. Well, I never. You remembered me after all.
Sure, it's not the melancholy of Book Frodo realizing he lost a chance at a great friendship, but as far as ways to condense Maggot go, I will take it over what Jackson did.
Sam, it doesn't seem as if I can trust anyone.
Well, after all, sir, Gandalf did say, take someone as you can trust.
Yeah, those lines made more sense in the order they were in the book.
I'm very pleased to meet you, Mr. Underhill. If old Butterbur got your name right.
Okay, so decades before Jackson turned Thorin Oakenshield into Aragorn Light, Mind's Eye just had the same actor play both Aragorn and Thorin Oakenshield. There are some moments in the book that are, for lack of a better word, visual, like the shadow that passes between Frodo and Bilbo, turning him into a little wrinkled creature with a hungry face and bony groping hands. Moments like these could be dealt with in narration, but in this particular case...
I should like very much to peep at it again.
Yes, I've got it. Looks the same as it always did. Here, if you must. But no, why should I?
I'm sorry, put it away. Don't adventures ever have an end?
You could also just make it completely innocuous on Frodo's part. Just like a casual changing of the mind, not actually a big emotional beat about the power of the ring. It's funny how both this version and Jackson's version completely rush that moment, but in opposite directions. This might be the only adaptation I've experienced to do all the scenes from the books in the order they're presented in the books. They do all of Book 3, The Treason of Isengard, and then they do all of Book 4, The Ring Goes East, without intercutting between Aragorn's adventure and Frodo's adventure. From the descriptions, it sounds like the 1955 production did the same thing, but every other adaptation I've experienced intercuts between the subplots, or just eliminates one altogether. I've spoken in the past about how I'm okay with this as an adaptational choice, even though Tolkien wouldn't be. The narrative now divides into two main branches. 1, prime action, the Ring Bearers. 2, subsidiary action, the rest of the company, leading to the heroic matter. It is essential that these two branches should be each treated in coherent sequence, both to render them intelligible as a story, and because they are totally different in tone and scenery. Jumbling them together entirely destroys these things. Look, I still disagree with him here, but I'm not going to tell a dead man he's wrong about his own story. So had he known that almost every adaptation going forward would jumble them together, he might have given the 55 production more credit for not doing that. And had he lived to hear the 79 production, he might have praised it as well for doing what I'm sure he thought was the bare minimum. This is one of very few adaptations to include Hanbury Han, just referred to as Wild Man, because I'm guessing they didn't know how to pronounce his name. I'm only 60% sure I know how.
No, father of horsemen, we fight not, and only kill orc folk in woods. Hate orc folk. You hate them too. We help as can.
Yorith is here, voiced by Pat Franklin, who also voices Mary, but she's never called Yorith, just Old Woman.
Would that there were kings in Gondor, as there were once upon a time, they say.
Why?
For it said in old law, yes indeed, the hands of the king are the hands of a healer. And so the rightful king could ever be known.
Men may long remember your words, old woman.
Once again, I'm guessing this is because they didn't know how to pronounce Yorith. And we got a Beargill. Radio is where these minor Gondorians thrive.
I'm Virgil, son of Baragon of the Guards.
I don't know who plays Beargill here, so I don't know if their career is as interesting as David Hemmings.
I will bear you before me under my cloak. Such goodwill should not be denied. Say no more to any, but come.
Thank you indeed. Thank you, sir, though I still do not know your name.
Do you not? Then call me Dernhelm.
The number of women who play male characters makes the fact that Mary doesn't immediately recognize Dernhelm as Éowyn a little more plausible, but the fact that he was just talking to Éowyn seconds ago as the audience hears it makes it way less plausible.
For I will sing to you of Frodo of the Nine Fingers and the Ring of Doom.
Hey, there's the Minstrel of Gondor, 1 year before Glenn Yarbrough played him. Since year one of Tolkien Adaptation Month, both Tolkien wikis corrected their mistaken categorization of him as a character who only appears in the Rankin Bass film. I don't know if that was corrected because of my video, but if so, you're welcome. I like this adaptation okay, and I'm glad that there is at least one complete Hobbit and Lord of the Rings adaptation that has a consistent through line. That is really nice that such a thing exists. And again, unlike The Hobbit, this wasn't overshadowed by another production at its time of debut. This would take 2 years to be overshadowed by another production.